Dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm so happy to see you all in this webinar. I'm the facilitator today. Let me first introduce myself. My name is Dave Chen, and I'm the convener of Enterprise Architecture Specialist Group and the Director of Emerging Technology of Hong Kong Computer Society, HKCS. This webinar is organized by HKCS and sponsored by Everbridge. On behalf of HKCS, I'm delighted to welcome you all to this webinar. The topic today we are going to explore is how to protect your IT investment with smart orchestration and keep your business running faster. I do believe most of you would come across the handling of IT incidents, no matter it is a cyber attack, system outages due to infrastructure downtime or software bugs, or even social media rumors, or like what we are facing now for the COVID-19 pandemic. These critical events greatly hurt productivity and, most importantly, the customer experience and our branding. However, due to the heterogeneous environments and lack of enterprise architecture roadmap, usually the systems are very silos, and shared data are also not integrated to each other and or centralized. When incident happens, management usually asks a lot of questions, such as what is happening and how does it impact to us, who should we notify. Also, executive may ask a lot of questions about cybersecurity too. Transparency and orchestration becomes the key, and streamline the end-to-end incident response is also very necessary for faster response. So in this webinar, we will first look into the key questions on cybersecurity that most executives may ask, shared by Ricky. And then we shall look into the solution that can protect IT investment with smart orchestration solution, will be shared by Mike. Before we start, may I invite Mr. Ted Shin, President of Hong Kong Computer Society, to give us welcome remarks. Mr. Ted Shin, please.
Thanks, Dave. I also like to thank Ricky and also Mike, for joining today this sharing session. And also like to welcome all the Hong Kong CS members and all those participants making the effort in joining this afternoon webinar. As Dave mentioned, we always have to deal with different challenges, be it is due to the recent COVID-19 or some other event or some other activities. So how to ensure that we have a holistic picture of what is going on in our organizations or in our system. We must have something orchestrate smoothly so that when we are being asked by our senior management, we can have a quick response to them. Once again, I'm very glad that today we have Everbridge as our sponsor, and we have the expert here in this panel, and the sharing session. So without further ado, I pass it back to Dave. And so I do believe everyone of us can definitely learn something from the expert. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted. Also, thanks to Everbridge on their sponsorship. Please leave your questions in the Q&A. You may find the Q&A button in the Zoom. And also, if you leave your questions and fill the survey form at the end of the webinar, you can have a chance to win a Nokia 5-inch mobile phone. So please feel free to submit your questions, and I should pick the questions and ask the speakers during the Q&A session. Okay, so today we have two speakers. Let me introduce the first speaker, Mr. Ricky Wu, Director of Emerging Technologies and Convener of Cybersecurity Specialist Group, Hong Kong Computer Society. Ricky is currently the Executive Director, CISO of a multinational financial institution. He had held senior management positions in various international consulting firms, heading the technologies risk consulting, IT auditing, and consulting services in mainland China and Hong Kong. So his topic today is the key questions on cybersecurity for executives. So let's welcome Ricky. I pass the screen to you. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Let me show the topics today. It's about, you can see the PowerPoint, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So today you can see the title is the key questions on cybersecurity for executive. In fact, it's not only questions for executive, it's also the questions from executive as well. It's a cybersecurity management team, part of the management team. You, from time to time, you might be being asked or being challenged by senior executive about cybersecurity. And this is also very important for that role because they need to deal with not only technical issues, so hackers or security incidents, but also inquiry for executive as well. Because cybersecurity seems like it's a very technical or interesting topic for them to know about it. So before that, it's a very good symptom. It seems like as a cybersecurity practitioner, how to show our managers, show our bosses that we are doing a good job. Does it mean no news is good news because throughout the year, no security incident, we are not being hacked by hackers? Does it mean that we are doing a good job or not? Seems like the answer is yes and no. So this is one of the toughest part as a cybersecurity practitioner. But from time to time, as a CISO or head of cybersecurity, we need to oversee all sort of issues in relation to cybersecurity. But at the same time, your managers, your bosses, even the board of directors might have some questions to you, some query to you, which I heard a lot from my colleagues, from some peer of other banks, other industries, also a member firm, that those questions seems like very straightforward, very easy, but in fact it's very tough to answer. Let me share with you some key ones, see whether you came across this sort of situation or not. The first one, very obvious. When you want to tell them something about cybersecurity, for example, you ask for resources or you tell them what's happening outside, what's the trend, these sort of things, they might have a question that, should I need to know this? The reason why they have asked this sort of question, I believe majority because they do believe it's a technical issue. They believe you guys should handle it because more or less it's about cybersecurity. Don't bother me, handle it by yourself, these sort of things. So if this is the case, then we will be in deep trouble because we need to know whether ethical support can be provided by our senior management. So how can we deal with these sort of questions? First of all, we need to let our bosses or senior management, including board of directors, knows that even though as a cybersecurity risk management team, they cannot control or they cannot manipulate the threat landscape they are facing. They can only control the company's ability to respond to those risk environments. But on the other hand, as a senior executive or board of directors, they should hold accountable for all those issues, including senior management. They should hold accountable for the development of a key strategy to address those threats and vulnerability as well. So this is a very clear message that cybersecurity is not a technical issue. It's a business issue. This should be addressed at the corporate level. Senior management, including board of directors, should keep an eye on it, and they are accountable for it as well. You can see, in fact, different layer of management, they do have role play in cybersecurity management. Starting from board of director, you can see from this diagram, they have the ongoing obligation to provide oversight for activity related to cybersecurity. Some of the initiative, some of the, for example, risk appetite, they have to review and approve it as well. And for executive committees, including CEO, they have to ensure organizational function, resources, those kind of things are in place so that they can, and also the resources are properly utilized to fulfill the directive of the board and also regulatory requirements as well. Senior management, like even including CISO, CIO, BU heads, they have the accountability to make sure that they enforce the policy and fulfill regulatory requirement and monitor the utilization of the resources and make sure that they are utilized effectively, those kind of things. So the actual cybersecurity practitioner, like the security engineer, operator, those people, they are the one actually exercising those control, and also they are accountable for the design and implementation of those process an initiative approved by senior management. So you will see it's no longer just a job for cybersecurity practitioners, but also board of directors, senior management, they do have a role play on this. Another very, very interesting question. So after you have successfully convinced your boss or senior management that, okay, it's your responsibility, you have to look after that, you have to keep an eye on that, then they start raising their interest about your job then. They might ask you another question, which you believe is a good one. What resources you are lacking and why? So seems like they are trying to give you some resources, right? But the tricky part is, they might not mean that. They might not mean that they want to give you the resources. But the tricky part is the one highlighted in red. Why? That means they are questioning why you need those kind of resources, why it is needed. How can you justify these sort of resources? This is also another typical example. It's a very simple, very straightforward question, but very hard to answer. For example, in order to answer this question effectively, first of all, you need to know what I need to do, why I need to do it, what could go wrong if I don't do it, and then the last one, what resources I need in order to do it properly. Before you can answer this sort of question, you can never answer your boss with that simple question, what sort of resources you're lacking of and why. So usually we try to divide this issue into three parts as usual: people, process, and tool. Let's start with process first, because without a process, you never know what you need to do. And there are lots of standards and best practice for cybersecurity management in the industry, like NIST, ISO, COVID, those kind of things. So they are all very good as a starting point, because you need to customize it and make it suitable for your own organization as well. These frameworks, in fact, they can be an effective platform for cybersecurity risk management as a baseline of the business as well. And to understand this, CISO or the head of cybersecurity should establish or have some procedures to measure whether they have implied this framework or methodology. But at the same time, they also should have established some metrics to measure whether the process, the procedure, the approach are adopted properly and effectively as well. So with this sort of things, you have a starting point where you should do. And in fact, you can see for this diagram, more or less the old school saying that, in fact, risk management, including cybersecurity, the four major parts is predict, prevent, detect, and response. Some of them may believe predict is the most important part. Some of them may be prevent. But seems like according to the latest event happening in Hong Kong or some other place in the world, respond also play a very critical part. If you cannot respond in a timely manner, the damage could be double, triple, or increase significantly. So you will see the shorter you can complete all these sort of things, the better situation you will face. So in summary, that means you have to streamline your response and accelerate your resolution as well. The faster you can complete these sort of things, the better result you can achieve. Otherwise, if you take longer, then maybe the losses or damage will be bigger. So you will see why we need it, what could go wrong if I does not have these sort of things. In terms of tools, okay, from this diagram, I'm not overwhelming the picture, but it's true. In fact, I can count hundreds or even thousands of tools in the market. I did have a chat with some of the peers, some of my friends in other industry. They showed me the industry. I found that there are more than 500 tools in the inventory for security. Okay, but the problem is more than 50% of those tools concentrate on a specific area. That means they're overlapping. But on the other hand, it's not the worst part. The worst part is some of the area hasn't been covered by any security tools or security defense system, these sort of things. So we are not a collectors. We are not looking for quantity. We're looking for quality. That means we need to make sure that we know what we are acquiring. So you can see some of the tools focus on infrastructure security, some of the tools focus on mobile security, some of them for application security. Before you commit or before you buy any tools, make sure you know what you're looking for. For this PowerPoint, you can see, in fact, each tool, they have their strength or they have their function to address some of the issues. Let's say for the queue chain perspective, some of them address issue for delivery phase. Some of them address some issue for during installation phase and so on. So before you commit to any cybersecurity solution or vendor, first of all, as a CISO or as a decision maker, you have to identify, have you identified any specific security objective and requirement before you move on? Or who do you need buy-in from? For example, if you are buying something, want to protect, let's say e-banking, then maybe personal banking business unit is the one you have to ask for buy-in. And also, at the same time, do you have any experienced staff to run the product? Because those are very sophisticated product, you need someone to operate it. So it's not a magic. After you buy the tool, install it, everything is okay. Then you need some people to run on it. So this is one of the issues you have to tackle, and also whether the vendor provide good tech support and good customer service as well. Last thing, come to people. As I mentioned before, you need to make sure that you have right people to do the right thing. So even though you have the most powerful, most comprehensive tools in your shop, if you do not have adequate people, it doesn't mean anything. So you will see that there's an issue we are always facing is we do not have enough people. These statistics show in this PowerPoint, you can see how bad the situation is. 69%, more than around 70% of the feedback saying that they are understaffed, and they are around 1/3 of them. Some of the job are not fulfilled and not qualified, sort of things. So people is always a very critical issue for us to look into it. So you know the situation about people, tools, and process. Then you have to convince your boss how much have to spend. So maybe you can take reference to some research or a trend analysis report from reputable organizations showing that, okay, boss, you have to spend some money on or invest something on cybersecurity. You can see the trend and give them some idea about, okay, or the threshold, the yardstick, okay, what's the benchmark then? Show them some of the figures to convince them, okay, that's the resources I need. That's the situation we are facing. For example, this slide shows you example from Gartner's. Okay, around 6% of our total IT budget we spend on cybersecurity, according to the report just released in 2020. So you will see, especially the industry like software publisher, banking and financial services, government sectors, they will spend more than 6% as well. So just let your boss have some idea about what spending should be and why we need so. So the last one, which seems like it's the most simplest one, but also it's the toughest one to answer. Are we secure enough? They always ask for this question. Okay, if you simply ask, yes, boss, we are perfect, then you will have lots of questions followed by your answer. But you say, maybe not, I don't know, I do not have a good idea, these sort of things, then you will get in deep trouble. So how can we address these sort of questions? And before you can answer this question, first of all, again, you have to know how healthy or whether you are in good shape or not. Before that, you have to know your enemy in terms of cyber kill chain, attack metrics. You know what the behavior is and how do we cope with those kind of attack, threat monitoring. You know what they're doing, what's the trend analysis, these sort of things. So you will know your enemy first before you can answer this question, because if you don't know what your enemy is doing, you can do nothing. Okay. Second of all, the security may be loophole not only from the security loophole of your device or your infrastructure, maybe from the staff as well. So make sure that you have very good staff awareness training program to your staff as well, because a careless click of a phishing email can damage everything. So make sure that you have these sort of things in place. And also you have to define some risk indicator and monitor it from time to time. This is a very good approach to tell your boss, to tell senior management how good or how bad we are. in terms of healthiness, in terms of readiness, in terms of robustness of our security control. So these sort of things, once these sort of things are in place, you got a clue, you have a more clear idea about whether we are in good shape. So are we secure enough? You can have a better picture or more systematic picture to paint that. So key success factors of effective cyber risk management is not only for tools, people, or those kind of things, but in fact, clear ownership of management accountability. That's just like I mentioned before. And also, we need to have a periodic evaluation and monitoring of our cybersecurity control, whether they are still operating effectively or not. We have to keep an eye on the trend of cybersecurity attack and compare with what we have done and see whether we can cope with the issues effectively. And of course, if we can have some sort of collaboration with the industry, sharing these sort of things, you can join some seminar conducted by HKCS or some organization and try to share the information among your peers or industry or friends. Then it might help as well. And the last one, you have to have better. You can have an independent assessment, whether you can get it done by some third-party consulting firm, or you can have some audit or second line of defense to do a health check and see whether you are good enough. For example, independent penetration test might help, independent risk assessment might help as well, so that you can ping to your boss whether we are secure enough. It's not my opinion, it's a third party and independent consultant's opinion. It sounds much more convincing to them as well. So I hope that this is the last slide of my deck. Hope that with those kind of things in place, you can have a clue how to address those. Looks like simple, but very tough to answer questions from your boss or senior management. Then eventually you have a final comment from your boss, good job. And if you can achieve that, I will really appreciate to know that, because this is the ultimate objective of this presentation as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ricky. Just feel free to submit your questions to Ricky. I have a couple of questions on my hand. Actually, you have mentioned that more than 6% of the IT spending on the IT security. But it's quite a lot indeed. But how do we measure the investment, the return on investment? Usually, what are the KPIs for security team or security for security spending?
In fact, it's a very good question. The benchmark I just shared with you from Gartner, it's just a reference point for all the audience. It's not always true benchmark or this is a golden rule. But it's a very good starting point to negotiate with your senior management, because they are not technical. They might not have a sense about how much we have to spend, but this is a very good starting point for them to as a benchmark. But at the end of the day, just like what I mentioned, you need to let them know what we want to achieve, what sort of control we need to put into our system, and why we need to do so. And if this is not done properly, what could go wrong, and what sort of risk they are facing. So try to paint the picture in this way. It's much more easier to convince senior management to allocate adequate resources to your team.
Okay, thank you. The next question is about how do we get the senior management, I think, to buy in, especially in a non-profit making educational institute, quite specific. I think for those non-profit company on the IT spending is very limited and also tight. So how do we approach to the management before the accident or incident actually happened? They never think of the risk, right? But how do we get them to buy in?
In fact, usually we try to sell these sort of points to our senior management. We have two major approaches. The first one is positive selling. That means sell our boss or the sponsor how good we will be if we can have these sort of resources in place. But for cybersecurity, seems like the other way is much more effective. This is what we call negative selling. That means telling our bosses, if the resources are not in place, how bad how bad a situation you will face. For example, there are a number of security incidents happen all around the world. They suffer from big loss in terms of stock price, reputation, those kind of things. those are very good examples to show your boss, okay, if these sort of things are not done properly, maybe we are the next. So it is very effective for cybersecurity to have this sort of negative selling and to convince your boss why you need this sort of resources as well.
Okay, maybe last question. Calvin is asking whether you can share some experience in quantifying the impact of cybersecurity risk to show your senior management, how to quantify the impact.
Okay, this is a very theoretical question. Okay, you sometimes in risk management world, maybe they have likelihood versus impact, and they have index indicator, these sort of things. But that might not work for some of the bosses because they are hesitant to look into these sort of figures. In order to quantify the impact, for example, let's say especially for those giant company like a list company, we have lots of examples like Yahoo or let's say Cathay Pacific. If they have this sort of issue happen before, the stock price drops significantly within the same day. And it also, some of the senior management, including CEO, CISO, they have to step down because of those incidents. So you will see from the bad example, you can tell the senior management what will be the worst scenario. So in order to make sure that we are not the next one, we have to better equip ourselves and cope with this sort of issue well beforehand.
Okay, cool. Looks like I can still ask one more questions because of the we have time. I understand that there are a lot of security products focused on the network or on the infrastructure, but not really too much on the application itself. But I understand that most of the applications are actually happening in the web application tier. That means coming from the website or coming from the web attack. So do you think that in the future, we should put more focus on the web application security, or you have another view on that?
In fact, it's already the situation right now. So the hacking technique, even though DDoS, in traditional DDoS, we are not talking about trying to overwhelming the web, the infrastructure itself. We have, even in DDoS, we have level 7, so-called level 7 attack, trying to attack the application itself. And some of the phishing email malware, those getting ransomware, are targeting our application instead of fake website, phishing website, application layers attack as well. So you're totally right, but we are already facing this sort of threats already. So right now, the challenge of CISO or head of cybersecurity, they no longer just focus on the infrastructure itself, but they have to make sure that application security is also in place. Start from day one, that means in design phase. And rather than, okay, once put up into production, then try to see some makeup control to mitigate this risk. Usually this did not work, it won't work. And that's why all the companies, I suggest they have a very comprehensive security framework to assess the risk, security risk, or not only on infrastructure, but also on application as well, starting from design phase where they take into consideration about cybersecurity control in their design, and so that they will have an easy job, easier life in the future.
Thank you. I think that's all for the questions. Thank you, Ricky. Let's move on to the next speaker, Mr. Mike Beckett, Senior Solutions Consultant of Everbridge. Mr. Mike is a Senior Solution Consultant focused on critical event management, keeping people safe and businesses running faster. Being passionate about value-based selling approach, Mike helps prospects to realize the cost benefits of investing in the correct solutions to meet their current and evolving business requirements. Mike has been an instrumental part of the growth of several startups through the IPO process and beyond, fundamentally a trusted pre-sales technical specialist who is visionary and heavily involved in growth of the SaaS-based compute world of today. So his topic today is how to protect your IT investment through the smart orchestration. So I will pass the screen to Mike. Thank you.
Hi there, thank you. Hopefully you can see my screen.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. So thank you for the introduction. Thank you, Ricky, for that very interesting venture into the world of security and cybersecurity and issues related to that. What we're going to talk about now.
Sorry, Mike, to interrupt you a little bit. Maybe you have to change the display settings so that the audience can see the whole full screen. Yeah, exactly.
Wrong one. Yeah. Okay.
Swap the PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me know.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Ricky.
Okay, so yeah, thank you, Ricky, for all that information. And what we're going to talk about now is really about how organizations like yours can implement solutions that not only address cybersecurity, but potentially can address those issues right across the board. And therefore, one of the things I want to start off with really is think about the why. Ricky made the point just now of saying, well, you know, when you try and justify your position and justify, you know, situations, there's lots of reasons today as to why these issues are happening. You know, the sheer pace of digital transformation is a major issue. You know, organizations are expected to support the new versions of DevOps, the new versions of applications that are being launched every day with the same amount of staff, with the same team that's been managing applications all along. There's no second team, there's no extra people to get involved in this. And to Ricky's point more about cybersecurity, it ends up being the same team who are looking after cybersecurity. Yes, you'll have overlays who can advise, but cybersecurity becomes a huge issue for most organizations. And then further to complicate that, you know, organizations have to become compliant and follow compliance rules. So it's not only about people trying to get at your organization from the worldwide internet base, but it's also about you as an organization applying your compliance rules to meet requirements to do with your industry and driving like that. So all of these situations within our environment we see today. And as Ricky mentioned, you know, when you are asked, well, why do you need this? Why do you need to update? These are some of the reasons we hear every day about the instances, about what's happening in the industry. That means we need to really think about how we move forward. One of the main reasons why people think about engaging and improving their response, and as Ricky mentioned, we're talking about streamlining incident response, whichever issue you have. It's really about how quick can we get solutions back up and running, how can we respond, and most organizations will have some kind of SLA in place. It may be just an internal SLA of pride, but most organizations today, certainly with public-facing applications, anything like that, will have an SLA to somebody, to some organization that requires solutions to be up and running, you know, on a full-time basis. So if we do get an incident, because incidents do happen, whether that's a cybersecurity attack, whether it's a just a hardware failure or a software failure or an application failure, today we spend many, many thousands of dollars on abilities to detect and find out what's happening. You know, Ricky talked about over 500 tools just in the cybersecurity space, each one doing slightly different things and each one having a need. But the reality is, with all those tools doing all slightly different things and having a requirement, how do you take that information and process it? You know, you can detect things, and most organizations today detect incidents down within 5 to 10 to 20 minutes at the most. And then they'll categorize them maybe as a P1 or a P2 or a SEV1 or SEV2 or high priority, however you in your organization specifically categorize them. But the reality is we have a detect phase, And that's the first step to understanding that there's a problem. If we then think about maybe the back end of what happens in this whole meantime to restore, we have a section of investigate, fix, and test. These three phases have been automated already. I've historically come from the automation space, and automating these areas of detect, investigate, fix, and test have been things I've been involved in and specialized in over the previous years. Typically, investigate, you're going to have expensive resources, your DBAs, your programmers, your high-level analysts, to understand what's gone wrong. How has that gone wrong? How can we fix it? Putting it together, fixing it, and then testing it are typically, you know, some automation, but a lot of manual and a lot of people brains involved in deciding that. But where it really falls down, and this is where your SLA becomes at risk, is going from the detect phase to the investigate phase. We have this time that is getting people involved. How do we get people involved? And we call it rally and respond. EMA have come up and said, in actual fact, it takes between an hour to an hour and 30 minutes and 90 minutes to actually rally people together and get them engaged into any kind of a cybersecurity attack or standard outage, application outage, anything like that. When you have those problems, if it takes, you know, 60 to 90 minutes to actually get hold of the people who need to fix the problem, those resources that you need to step in and investigate and understand what's going on, that's a huge cost hit. There was a question earlier about how you can justify, you know, spend on these kind of applications. And even for charitable organizations, non-profit organizations, you have a situation where if you're spending money, and whether that's actually real dollars going out or, you know, associated dollars just in your process of running your business, if you can reduce that time from 90 minutes down to, say, 5 minutes, you can potentially save, you know, anything from 50 to 80 to 85 minutes in a particular instance. So greatly reduce the amount of time it takes to get the application back, get the service back, and get the service running. Of course, you know, with SLAs in place, that also always benefits that. So that's what we really need to think about, is how we can get our mean time to restore, our whole incident management situation, whether it be cybersecurity related, whether it be infrastructure related, whether it be any of those things, major incidents, down to a manageable level. So reducing rally and respond can be significant. However, there's other things we can do.
Sorry, Mike, maybe I heard again. Seems like maybe the resolutions of the screen does not match with what you have. So maybe you try to display setting as well, because we can't see 100% of the slide, maybe just part of them. Maybe it's because of the setting. Maybe you go to display setting, you press escape, and display setting again. This time, is
that any better?
No.
Oh, okay.
Display setting. This time, this time choose duplicate. See whether it is better or not.
Is that better?
Oh, much better. Then okay. So thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so back to minimizing downtime, reducing the time it takes to actually restore any environment, whether that's been a service outage, whether that's been a cyber attack, whether it's been any of those things. The automation of getting people engaged to resolve this issue is really key. And to follow on with that, one of the subjects in the title of this session is orchestration. Now, orchestration can be anything from a simple test to full rebuild of an environment. So orchestration has a very, very wide ability to assist. And many organizations will use this in many different ways, but the overall effect, and I'm going to show you this in another slide, could be to significantly affect the amount of time it takes to restore your environment, restore an environment to the service. Given all of that, the cost justification, as we were talking about earlier, really comes down to the time savings. Now, many organizations have the dollar rate per minute any organization has. And, you know, I have an example of a US hospitality company whose per minute cost of an outage was actually $27,000. I have many examples of where that was per minute. I have many examples of where that number is anywhere between $9,000 and $5,000. And for your organization, this will differ depending on what business you're in, depending on what industry you're facing, and what your application specifically is. And of course, this will differ with the priority. With a P1 or a major incident, that dollar rating is always going to be much higher. So associating the cost of any application that can reduce the mean time to restore against the amount of outage, reducing the time it takes to resolve those things, is the key to understanding how we can cost justify some of these things. So looking at, and I apologize, this is a very small eye chart, but it really does sort of take into and engage the manual IT process. So today, if you had, you know, several tools, monitoring tools, ITSM tools, comms tools out there sending alerts, sending information in, it could be that the person who's monitoring it becomes sort of blind to the incident that's coming in. They'll look at a monitoring message come in and say, oh, we see that every day. It's not important today. You know, let's let it go. And of course, you let that go for 30, 40 minutes until it comes up again. Well, maybe that is a problem. But all of a sudden, your mean time to respond is going up and up and up and out of control. That can just purely be through the human brain not responding to it. You know, this is very simple things. Several teams may be stakeholders. You may need to get people involved who are not the resolvers, business owners. Maybe you're a sales organization and you're trying to sell stuff on the web. You know, your sales management will need to know that actually we can't take money at the moment. So our sales are going to be down for the next hour while we resolve this. They don't need to know the technical details. They just need to be aware that the business reasons for these. We also need efficient handoff and collaboration because, you know, this may move from being a cyber-based security concern to an internal firewall or internal network issue, in fact, not be a cyber security issue at all. So the incident needs to be handed off to another group. Efficiency of that is another killer within the manual IT process. And then many disconnected IT tools. We've already talked about the hundreds of monitoring tools, the hundreds of security tools that are out there. I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that you're getting rid of all of those. What you need to do is you need to embrace those, whichever tools you're using, and automate the process and remove the manual steps within this whole solution. So we come back to the phrase that Ricky used earlier: streamline incident response and accelerate the resolution. Two real key functions that we're trying to share with you today. So let's look and see how this works. Let's look and see how this would look in an organization. So you can see on the left-hand side, we have different examples of issues that we have. We have our cyber security, we have our simple service outage, we have infrastructure or apps, you know, and this can be even include, you know, planned maintenance. Any of those functions that could affect a service and how the service is delivered could be input to this kind of workflow, to this kind of solution. I give you examples of applications at the top, but it's not limited. We have a very powerful integration front end. The integration of these tools has to be very simple and very easy to do, because you don't want to spend lots of resource and lots of time integrating and managing integration points. That needs to be very simple and out of the box. I'm currently working with a customer who's looking at replicating a lot of functionality by integrating a number of different disparate tools to try and achieve an overall goal, which can be achieved by an off-the-shelf application. And that's the key that we've got to think about. So any application out there that can output data and pass information can pass information into a self-service integration port. That's really key, a very simple to use interface. The next thing that's got to be automated is the lookup. Who are we going to engage? Who are the right people? If it's cybersecurity, you know, is Ricky on the list? Do we need to get hold of him to get him engaged within this this environment itself, to understand what's happening, to assist on what's going on? But really breaking down and peeling back skill sets, on-call rotas, escalation paths, all of those things to understand who gets involved and how that might affect the business going forward. The next thing we talked about really is how are we going to get hold of those people? Many people say, well, okay, we can send them email. We can send, once we understand who we need to get hold of, we're going to send them an email. How many people, you know, on the call today actually don't read emails every minute? I'm putting my hand up. You know, my email's turned off at the moment while I'm on this webinar. If someone was urgently trying to get hold of me and sending me an email, they're not going to get hold of me. It's just the way it is. So having multimodality communications means that you're not reliant on an email going out. You're reliant on phone calls, text messages, application messages, everything like that, and a multitude of ones. So if the person you're trying to get hold of doesn't respond to the first modality, it will tick over to a different one. So you send them an email, they don't respond. You send them an SMS, oh, they now respond. Or you send them a message into an app, again, they respond. And that's really key. So having multiple routes, secure routes into getting hold of people is important. And the next important thing is the different kinds of people we want to get involved. You know, we really want to get the IT responders, the people who are going to fix the problem for us, involved immediately. And we want to give them the details of what's come in from the cyber attack. What do we know about the cyber attack? What are the technical details? Where are the issues? What is happening? Those details will need to go to those IT responders to actually start resolving the issue. But the key stakeholders, we talked about sales management, who might need to know an application's down and it's not taking money from someone at the moment. They don't need to know that even necessarily it's a cyber attack. They don't need to see what error messages are coming out. They purely need to know that the service is currently down and maybe an expected time of when it's going to come back. And then we think about, I've got customers, but end users of an application in your organization, particularly in today's COVID world. You know, I'm sitting at home, as I'm sure many of you are, and we're working remotely. If something happened to my laptop, something stopped working, do I know that it's my laptop, or do I know it's the service I'm accessing across the internet? Do I know it's a corporate service that's gone down? You know, the truth is I don't know. I'm likely to put a help desk ticket in. So actually just sending a message out to your consumers of the solution you're providing stops a lot of noise coming into help desks and solutions like that. And again, the consumers don't really need to know the details of why the service is out. They just need to know that the service is out and potentially when it will be back. They should try again. So different kinds of people need to know different messages, and that's completely up to each organization to decide, excuse me, which kind of people, which kind of message needs to go to each person. So then we move on to the next phase, and the example I'm giving you here, we've gone to smart orchestration as one of the areas of where we can start orchestrating functionality. We understand that a web service is down, or the web service is being, compromised. That's the message that's come through from the left-hand side. We might set up a piece of orchestration that says, well, actually, you could go and restart this web service. Do you want to try restarting this web service, or indeed shut it down? Some technical function like that, without actually having to log on to the service itself and do anything. Smart orchestration could have a link in the IT responders message that says, do you want to restart this web service, as a trial? Do you want to test this functionality? So saving an awful lot of time for a resolver to actually sit in, log into a box, find out what the problem is, all of those things. You could start automating functions like that ahead of time before jumping into a collaboration hub to understand what's going on, to understand and converse with your peers. And a collaboration hub may be a conference call, but it may also be integration with collaboration tools like Microsoft Teams or Slack or technology like that. But it's all about getting the technical teams together to discuss that. You might also need management teams to talk at a high level. Maybe the incident is involving branding and image of a company. And indeed, one of our other customers, I can mention Ericsson. Ericsson, they're based out of Sweden. Their services is really about video streaming, and this is video streaming to set-top boxes. And one of the things they talk about when they talk about the benefits of this immediate response is the fact that they know what's happening before customers do. They understand what's happening. And, if they're streaming something like, they use the example of the Super Bowl, they cannot have a hiccup in that. That's not an acceptable solution. And users would go elsewhere if there was. So Ericsson use our solution and automation when things happen. In some cases, they automate solutions to go and test things, to bring services back without a user getting involved. And that leads us to put in orchestration anywhere in this diagram, in actual fact. And I've just added it to the part before we even go and start finding people. We could start running tests within the tool to go out and check where things might be going wrong, what might be happening. And that could be even before we start looking for the right people to get involved to fix this. And that's a use case that we see from Ericsson all the time, where they're driving the solution. And really, yes, it's about cost of downtime and stuff like that. But the reality is, in their market, it's more about protecting the brand and protecting their brand within the environment. So very, very key. So after we've done our orchestration and our solution we've resolved the problem and we've got the incident, all that information can be captured and sent back to, if you're running a Cherwell or a Jira or a ServiceNow as a record of truth, all the information can be synced back into that environment. And we provide an audit trail capability to understand what has happened and how your team's responded, how you can respond better, and how you can develop and understand what's happened. So I wanted to show you an example of how orchestration might look. Now, when we talk to customers, I showed you an example earlier of a MIM process, a manual MIM process. Well, this might be the equivalent MIM process built in an orchestration world. And it's very simple, drag and drop icons to connect different flows together. And this particular flow, reduces process time by about 70% just by having this simple workflow built in. It is an example that I mentioned in the previous slide where on the extreme right of the screen, It actually is a workflow that goes off and restarts a service using Ansible, but we're using all the commands directly to Ansible, so the user, when they log in and the workflow runs, are presented with a menu with a choice, and the choices are they can promote the incident to a major incident, they can reject the major incident, they can actually start, in that case, a WebEx channel to collaborate on, or indeed they can go off and try and restart the Ansible server or the web server via Ansible. So building this technology, very simple and very quick, but enormous savings can be benefited. And if we think about the original slide I showed you, where we reduced the mean time to respond, or the mean time to recover, by 80%, it's a phenomenal story to take to your business to show how you can get back a lot of the time involved around incidents and processing incidents. A little bit about other customers. I've mentioned a couple of companies. We're in with other companies like, Lowe's are another big user of ours, who were able to reduce their outages by 33%. Those kind of measurements are reality. 33% drop in incidents. How that works is very important. And again, I may not have mentioned, but our large US hospitality company used to take 20 to 30 minutes in the rally and respond phase of getting people together to support the cause, support the incident. They were able to cut that down to less than 5 minutes, seeing an 80% improvement in their mean time to respond and mean time to restore. Here are a couple of examples. When we work with accounts or work with customers, we'll look at these kind of metrics, these kind of numbers, and these are directly on the rally and respond phase. You can see with Finster, they saved 43 minutes per incident based on the incidents that they currently have. The dollar value is significant to a business and will differ depending on businesses. It's just obviously the bigger the dollar value, it would appear for Everbridge as a company is a good thing. But you need to look at the first column that talks about, Finster had a 15 times faster incident response. WorldPay managed a 12 times faster incident response. Even if you take the dollar value away from that, the actual speed of response, the branding, the SLA capabilities, all of those functionalities, all of those things that get affected by your ability to respond to an incident are really key. So if you'd like, let me say why Everbridge and who are Everbridge. I know maybe in your region of the world, Everbridge isn't a well-known name. Everbridge as a company are into critical event management, and that's the technology we talk about. Today, we've been talking about it specifically around IT. The technology is broader. It works in personal safety, in business continuity as well. This gives us a platform that we leverage for all of these solutions, out there, that gives us a 99.99% uptime. That's a phenomenal uptime rate. That's including any maintenance and anything. So you are virtually guaranteed anytime you have a critical event, Everbridge will be there to support you and back you up. Some of the other statistics, I don't know about you, when I sit at Christmas and try and send out, or New Year, and send out 10 or 20 SMSs to my nearest and dearest to say, Happy New Year, hope everything's okay, see you in the new year. And, it takes 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours to send 20 or 30 messages. To give you some idea of scale, if you're relying on SMS messages to communicate with people, Everbridge supports 200,000 plus messages sent per minute. Okay, that's a phenomenal scale. And those messages have dual track. So if one provider is not there, we'll use a second provider. So You know, we can't guarantee SMS in any way at all, but with that throughput and that value, that power, you know, you're in very, very safe hands about the communication. Security is a very, very important thing because, you know, we've talked about cybersecurity and you protecting your business from cybersecurity. If you partner with an organization who are going to offer you a SaaS solution, and Everbridge is a complete SaaS solution, you have to be reliant and completely dependent on the security of that third party. Everbridge are FedRAMP compliant, SOX compliant, ISO 27001, etc. All of those compliance, we pride ourselves in our security and our protection of any data that's out there. And the platform is incredibly robust. And then finally, all products within the Everbridge solutions follow this same methodology: assess, locate, act, and analyze. In the IT world, it's assess, get the context and severity of the incident itself, using intelligence, know early. You know, as soon as a monitoring application sends a note in, you don't have to have an incident created. It can go straight to Everbridge, and Everbridge can notify people and get them engaged even before incidents are created. Correlation, understand who we're going to engage, locate the right people, the right resolvers, the impacted stakeholders, the impacted customers. Orchestration, follow the response of an organization, modify the response of an organization, improve the response of an organization through orchestration. And analytics, understand how you performed and how you went through. As a result, you really do shift from a reactive solution to a much more proactive solution. So that's the end of the presentation from me. I've been looking at some messages coming up. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, thank you, Mike, for the excellent presentation. Actually, we are running out of time, but I have 1 to 2 questions to go through. First is about actually you've mentioned about the orchestration. Can we just start from small or only for the large enterprise that can adopt such orchestration?
We can start small. We can start large. We'll engage with you to understand your organization and your processes, and we'll tend to fit a solution around your organization as opposed to, you know, is this the right number or that the right number? All
right. So another question I think is for Ricky. Danny mentioned that there's a lot of collaboration tool now using like Teams or Zoom and what are the most common pitfalls that we should be alerted at the board or C level?
In fact, there are some guidelines even from regulators saying that if you're trying to engage with the customer, the employee using Teams, Webex, or even Zooms, what sort of controls should be in place, including end-to-end encryptions, including to prevent some unauthorized access to your meeting, these sort of things. So we should there are lots of this sort of information from regulators or from the internet as well. From work from home as a CISO, I believe the most challenging question is if the senior management asks us whether the operation can be worked remotely in remote location, including their home, Starbucks, or anywhere. So for this situation, I believe the good answer to them is, first of all, we need to identify, we have to classify our application or operation into different types in terms of information being processed, nature of transaction, so we can classify as whether it's a high risk, medium risk, low risk, and then we let them know what sort of approval level is required. For example, if it's a very, very, very critical one, needs to be approved by CEO or even board of directors, so that they know that what sort of risk they're facing, they are accepting this sort of risk. From security point of view, we make sure that once the application is approved, that what sort of controls should be in place in terms of encryption, traffic, data security, sort of things. So I believe as long as we have well-defined structure or mechanism, I think it's okay, because no matter what, it becomes a new normal in the future.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for all the excellent presentation and also the questions from the audience. Please fill in the survey form at the end of the webinar. It will appear when you leave the webinar. You can win a Nokia phone if you fill in the survey form. You will have a chance to win that. So thank you very much for joining once again. I'll see you later. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.